The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Is anyone out there?
Another salesperson enduring the endless search. Exhausting. If you want to get right to the right conversations, you need LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Whether you're looking for new leads or strengthening existing relationships at your top accounts, get right to the right conversations with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Try LinkedIn Sales Navigator now with a free 60-day trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial.
Terms and conditions apply!
Take the directors of two of the highest grossing films of all time, add in the star of the highest grossing video game movie of all time, and the star of one of the most watched Netflix series of all time, and put them into one of the most expensive movies ever made. What do you get? A critic's bashdown and a chance for us to see if The Electric State is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Hello to all of our listeners in Coffs Harbour, Australia, and around the world. How are you guys doing? All right. I have said it before on this show time and time again, and I will say it now just to get this out of the way. The words straight to streaming should not be an automatic qualification to get on this show. But yet, here we are with a big budget straight to streaming film loaded with talent based on a widely popular book. And here we are to talk about The Electric State. And here to join us, Alex Leal's back on the show. Alex, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about this one and my second one of Netflix movies. So let's see if this one's any better than the last one I picked.
Yeah, see, I need to put this out there. I'm proud of you, dude. I am very proud of you because your taste of movies is getting markedly better with each episode that you are on. Because let's be honest, I'm still in therapy from Norbit. Time Cut, good film. Absolutely good film. And another one of those films that's straight to streaming, but still pretty darn good. Now we're talking about The Electric State. So we have another straight to Netflix film with an insane amount of talent behind it. And yet here we are talking about this, and some of the numbers you're going to hear are almost jaw-dropping for a film with this kind of pedigree behind it. So before we even get into this, I'm going to ask you, are you shocked that we are here today talking about this film?
I have to say yes and no at the same time. I wouldn't say this movie is bad. It's just like me and you, we level on with each other because we both love Marvel. So I would call this like a mid-Marvel movie, in my opinion.
We're gonna have words on this one here. I have a feeling, because I don't see this at all in any kind of Marvel microscope or magnifying glass at all. But we're gonna get into this a little bit later. We're here to talk The Electric State, but before we do, a little bit of business. Time to take this film and trailerize it.
All over the world, people are sounding the alarm bells about not letting robots and AI take your jobs. Now, enter an alternate timeline where someone should have listened. It's the 90s, or at least a reasonable facsimile, and robots around the world have rebelled against their slave masters, only to lose and find themselves banished in an isolated wasteland in the middle of the United States. an exclusion zone free of humans and all their ish. Wait. That was losing? Not having to deal with people? That's paradise, people. Paradise. But when one robot shows up at a girl's house claiming to be her brother, she doesn't question a damn thing and goes along for the ride. Like, one CAPTCHA could have made this a very, very short film. Along the way, she'll encounter an amalgamation of every Chris Pratt character ever made and a host of robots that make you wonder if people remember what technology was actually like in the 90s. No, seriously. We had to wait for a little box to scream into a phone line just to access the slowest internet ever, and God help you if your parents needed to make a phone call at the same time. Hashtag, not my 90s. Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt star in The Electric State. Rated PG-13 for Peanuts Gallery.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I still have memories of listening to the internet modem dial-up tone just so we could get on the internet and wait for 7 weeks while one page loaded up.
God, now I have that stuck in my head. Thanks for that.
Yeah, there is a bunch of people out there that are now reminiscing over the idea of CompuServe and AOL online discs being, sent to everyone's home for only X amount per month. You can actually dial up and access the internet. And dear God, how far have we come? But the 90s? Whew.
Hey, now we got technology for some reason, even though it's not that good.
But now no one goes outside. But, still, I digress. We have come a long way. This was definitely an alternate timeline 90s. But let's get into who is in this movie. The movie stars Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown, Ke-Huy Quan, Giancarlo Esposito, Woody Norman, Stanley Tucci, Woody Harrelson, Alan Tudyk, Jenny Slate, Brian Cox, and Anthony Mackie. We actually have an almost starring in this film. Michelle Yeoh was originally cast in the film but had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. That role was reworked and Ke-Huy Quan got that role. So now you know who Michelle Yeoh was supposed to play. The movie is directed by Anthony and Joe Russo. Of course, the masterminds behind Avengers Infinity War, Captain America Civil War, and Avengers Endgame. So there's a little bit of pedigree there because, the Russos are awesome. The movie is based on the book by Simon Stålenhag, who also wrote Tales from the Loop, which of course was developed for Amazon Prime and Prime Video, but not for the budget that this film has. This movie has a budget of $320 million, and I'm just sitting here I can't even wrap my head around $320 million. Like,
for a Netflix movie too.
Exactly. We're never going to see a box office for this. Of course, I have thoughts on that, but still, regardless, $320 million. There's a good side to this and a bad side to this, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I want to put this into perspective. According to IMDb.com, this is the 16th film to ever surpass a $300 million budget. But it is also the only film of those 16 which is not based on a pre-existing franchise. So this is brand spanking new territory for, $320 million ways to spend all your money. Of course, this film came out recently, so it's too early to talk about awards. I will say, while we normally don't touch on movies released in the calendar year, I'm curious, Alex. I know it's early in the year still. Are we going to be talking about this film on next year's Razzies grading on a curve?
I believe we are. The movies that we've got right now to the start of this year have not been that great, especially like if we want to look at another big budget movie that's going to make $1 billion, look at the Minecraft movie, for example. The Minecraft movie is going to make like $1 billion. And that's how sad it is with the movie industry right now, because it's just going to be relying on IPs. And I just see like the Electric State it's not bad. It's just I feel like it needs to be nominated.
I mean, obviously, we're still early into the year, and you have to think that, yeah, the Minecraft movie is probably going to get somewhere in there, despite a big box office, because a big box office doesn't necessarily mean that a film is good. It just means that people went to go see it. Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm looking at you guys. But you also have to think that Snow White's probably going to end up in the mix as well for the Razzies. But again, this is a mid-April take, and we still have more than half of the year to go. But the reason why we are here, not just to lift up or poo-poo on a film, depending on which angle we take on this, it's the critics. Over at Rotten Tomatoes, this film has a tomatometer of 15%. 15! But yet the popcorn meter sits at 69%. But let's get the bigger picture here. Over at IMDb, the film has 5.9 out of 10 stars for a 59% score. At Metacritic, it has a Metascore of 30. At Letterboxd, it sits at 2.1 stars out of 5, giving it a 42% score. And at the Movie Database, sits at 66%, giving this the aggravated aggregate of 46.83%. So, a low of 15, a high of 66. Where are you putting this?
I have to admit that aggregate is actually where I am at. Like 46 is actually not bad for it. And I think I'm going to stick with that. The 46 is probably up my alley.
You know what? I'm going to argue this one, but you'll see why in a second.
Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules, and no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free 1-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
This episode is brought to you by Walmart. New beauty is in bloom at Walmart, and it's all about springtime radiance. From Drybar, Tula Skincare, and hundreds more available online. Walmart has the premium brands you want and this season's on-trend products for flawless, glossy hair and hydrated skin. Big name beauty brands? Check. The things you love? Check. Find trending spring beauty and all you need to look and feel gorgeous at Walmart, on app and online.
That's your money saying it's time for a McDonald's run. Because with new McValue at McDonald's, you get more than you expect. Like buy a 6-piece McNuggets and add a McChicken for just $1. Your money says let's go. Get more than you expect with new McValue. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
But let's get into the breakdown of this film. We're going to start with the biggest star in this film, Millie Bobby Brown, playing Michelle Green. Your thoughts on her?
So I grew up with Stranger Things. I've seen Millie Bobby Brown grow up from the little girl that she was to just now being a teenager itself, and with that whole cast of Stranger Things. So seeing her in this movie was nice to see. And because I know she's done a couple of other Netflix movies on the side, like Damsel and a bunch of others.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, there were some points that I liked her, and then there were some points that she was like over explaining the plot and kind of going on like exposition after exposition, especially like when they were in the car and she was explaining the new to you and everything like that. I was like, okay, is there any need for this exposition? But like, I still thought she was good. And when the emotional parts came, the emotional parts hit, in my opinion, with her and her brother. So I would say she was actually pretty good in the movie.
It's interesting because I think the exposition was needed, because for anyone who has not read the book, and I am one of those people, despite the number of books that sit behind me in my recording studio that no one will ever see because this is not a video podcast, I have never actually read anything from Simon Stålenhag.
I have not either.
But that being said, you do need to drop down some exposition. I don't think her exposition dumps were that egregious. Actually, I think of every exposition dump that's in this, I mean, the opening background story of how we got to this point in this world, I thought was brilliantly done, except for one point, but I'll get back to that. With her, I think that my biggest problem with Millie Bobby Brown's character, not her acting, her character. Let me stress this because I think she actually did a very good job, especially when you realize that she is playing against CGI. You know, this isn't real animatronics. This is all CGI. So she's playing really against something that she's not able to see, even though, you know, because of the nature of the way the Simon Stålenhag book is, it makes for a fantastic way to actually storyboard this movie out. A reason why his stuff is getting turned into video properties. But I understand why she's checked out of society. I understand why she is the way she is. By the way, spoilers like a mofo in this one. So I know this film just recently came out. Please go watch this before listening to the rest of this because I'm not holding back. There is going to be spoilers in this episode. Okay? Cool. Her parents are dead. Her brother is dead. And I understand why she is the way she is. But the only aspect of that I don't understand is her refusal to use all the technology. The robot aspect, I get it because we're coming out of a war with the robots, but it was because of technology that won that war. Why wouldn't she want to use these like discount Ready Player One VR helmets that they've got that look like giant vacuum cleaners on their heads? I don't understand the character's aspect to that. I mean, I sort of appreciate why she believed this robot that was basically being controlled by her brother, because there was a lot of mannerisms in there and all that. And you do have to kind of, don't bore us, get to the chorus here. But the initial fear evaporated PDQ. And at no point afterwards was there any suspicion of this robot somehow having some kind of code that would infiltrate into her inner circle for whatever reason. But it's her lack of disinterest in everything technological. I mean, she's riding a bike, so clearly we know that she's, moving away from that technology, although Ted doesn't seem exactly like the best foster parent at all. So, but at least she had a bike. That part of her character doesn't make sense to me. Everything else about Millie Bobby Brown in this does this. And I remember the 90s, the bangs and the hair and especially the coveralls. The coveralls scream 90s like crazy, especially with the one arm down kind of thing. Like she looks like she was just about ready to go to a New Kids on the Block concert in this. But I liked her in this. Maybe not necessarily in her interactions with Chris Pratt. And I don't even think I liked her interactions with the human form of her brother, Chris. I think her interactions with the Cosmo robot that brought her to the exclusion zone, that was when she was having these really great moments of acting where she's, interpreting how, the limited vocabulary that Cosmo has and what it means in relation to her brother.
Yeah, I completely agree. Honestly, with Millie Bobby Brown, and I can understand, and even the part where you said the bike, I swear to you, when I looked at that scene, it looked like E.T. to me. I was like, wait, are we watching E.T. or something? And the Ready Player One reference, great reference. This movie was almost like Ready Player One for me. And I know people thought that movie was so much not even nostalgia bait, but so many references. This one had way too many references in the movie.
You know what? I'm going to argue that one because, when you're dealing with a period piece, and we talked about this with Time Cut, when you're dealing with a period piece, you have to make references that make sense. Even though it was pointed out that near the end, you had the taco robot playing Wonderwall. This movie is set in 1994, I think it is. Wonderwall didn't come out until 1995. I think they also name drop Kid Rock in the opening exposition thing, but I'm like, yeah, but we're way before Ba Wadda Ba came out, so.
Wait, so what did you think though? What did you think though when Chris Pratt was basically just referencing like 3 things in the same sentences?
Okay, well, I have issue with that.
Okay.
I have multiple issues with that. But you know what? Let's get to that right now. Chris Pratt as John D. Keats, your thoughts?
He's playing the same Chris Pratt character that he plays every single time. It's just the same Chris Pratt that we know. We still enjoy him as being Chris Pratt itself. He's playing like a stoic. He's trying to play like a stoic version of like this character, which at some points works for me. But then when it was like the touch and go with like, especially at the end, where it was like him with the robot and the robot seemed to have died and he didn't, that just didn't work for me because they never really had that like they're friends. They weren't more than that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, no, I'm going to argue that one. Now, because Herm did actually save his life, I can see why he would think of Herm more as more than just a friend, more kind of like a brother kind of thing. But this is a good time to talk about this. The tonality of the film. Like there's a lot of humor in this. And Chris Pratt is kind of the central part of a lot of that humor because here you have an actor who is well known to be able to bring a comedic feel, a comedic touch to an action film. That's what Star-Lord is. Even though when we first see like video footage of him, like an interview with him in the opening exposition dump during the Robot War, it's more like Chris Pratt from the Tomorrow War, which was on Prime Video. Great film. Really enjoyed that film. But the thing is, Chris Pratt in that wasn't there to crack jokes. He's cracking jokes through this whole thing, complete with Twinkie references and whatnot. But let's put into perspective like the actual tonality of the story that we're dealing with. A post-Civil War between humans and robots facilitated by a massive corporation unethically using a brilliant child as a computer processor. Meanwhile, you have this dystopian nightmare exclusion zone where robots are cannibalizing other robots just to survive. And the end of the film, spoilers, the end of the film has your main character having to choose between keeping her brother alive or killing him in order to facilitate bringing down the entire system that put him there in the first place. This is not a happy story at all. This is not a film that should be leaning into Twinkie jokes with Star-Lord in the wasteland. Not to mention the fact that you have some of these robots, like some of these robots are very tonally spot on, right? But robots like Penny Pal and Popfly, they add to and Taco the piano playing robot. Like most of the robots, Mr. Peanut aside, are very jokey. But when you take a look at the story, it's kind of a downer of a story. So I have the Chris Pratt character in this, like he's there doing what Chris Pratt does. It would be like taking Jack Black and putting him in like a serious horror film and making him do serious things.
It doesn't work.
No. I mean, I remember covering R.I.P.D., a film that has Ryan Reynolds, but not in the Ryan Reynolds-esque role. He's the straight guy in this, or in Smokin' Aces. And I'm not saying that you want to typecast these actors into roles that they're always known for, because they're actors. They can do different things. Chris Pratt can be serious. So why didn't you let him in this?
Yeah. It's like they just keep him jokey. It's like, I never read the book for The Electric State, but it's like, there's so much like, because this movie is all about like human rights and also robot rights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also about like war. And it's like, it's supposed to be a very heartfelt and very like down to earth sort of movie. But if you add these jokes, it's like, it's just going to screw with the tone of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the need for, like, if you take an Avengers film, and we kind of have to draw this parallel because we're talking about a film directed by the Russos, right? If in an Avengers film, the reason why the MCU works is because there was a good balance of quip to action, right? But it's a superhero film. You go in there with this idea of, okay, we're going to have fun and you have to have a couple jokes along the way. That's okay. That's fine. This film should have been done with the weight of a film like Blade Runner. Had you made this film a bit more noir, for lack of a better terminology, I think you're going to match the tonality that should have been, because Millie Bobby Brown's got it, even though her character's a little sassy, and I understand that. You know, there's a little bit of that teen sass going on there, teens early 20s sass, but she's still gripping with these do the ends justify the means kind of decisions.
And it's good that you brought up Marvel, because I do want to actually bring up something of the Russos itself from Avengers Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
That movie is the perfect setting tone, and it's probably one of my favorite Avengers movies of all time.
Oh, it's arguably the best superhero film of all time, period.
Exactly. I agree. And where you have it, it's like you have the big bad basically win. They have jokes. Like, it's supposed to have jokes. It's an MCU movie.
Mm-hmm.
But the tone never drifts apart. And you always have that overlying big bad coming for the next person and the next person and the next person. But with this, it's like there's not stakes or anything.
Yeah.
Even the villain in this movie is the tone just doesn't work for him. For me, it didn't work.
Oh, don't you be talking about my Stanley Tucci that way. Stanley Tucci for the win. But no, it's one of those things where let's go back to Ready Player One. Ready Player One was a good action film that dealt with consequences, that dealt with the impact of technology, but they didn't play it for quips and bad jokes. Like, this was, no one's dipping the Twinkie into the beans in Ready Player One. Ready Player One knew exactly what the story that it was telling and told it, and didn't let humor for humor's sake get in the way.
It's also Steven Spielberg, so it's we can't be mad with him.
No, but I mean, you also have the Russos, and the Russos can do a good film. You just have to let them, and don't let the need to cater to who's in this and your perceptions of it. Because I mean, I understand that there are some actors that people write roles for them because they're that person. Enter every single Christopher Walken role in the last 10, 15 years, right? They're written for Christopher Walken so he can Christopher Walken all over the place. I get it. Just because you have Chris Pratt doesn't mean, look at the Minecraft movie, right? Just because Jack Black did the Peaches song in Super Mario Brothers, now he's going to have to sing a damn song in every single thing that he's in.
We're just have so many memes of him now from the Minecraft movie, and I'm going to hate it.
Do we need him singing Lava Chicken? Probably not. But
kids enjoy it, though.
Oh, kids will enjoy it, but that's the thing. The Minecraft movie is made for kids. The Electric State, I don't think, is made for kids when you realize the weight of the story. I do appreciate the idea of making it accessible, because there are some really good conversations that can be had with teenagers about very weighty topics that are depicted in this. You can draw parallels to history with this film. And maybe there's the reason why. Maybe in order to be able to teach lessons to those so history never repeats itself, you need to throw in a Twinkie in the beans joke. You need to have a little bit of humor in order to be able to sit kids down and I say kids, I mean teenagers who can understand, appreciate, and make those connections. I say kids because I'm old as dirt. But still, you have a way of opening the doors to these conversations And if the Chris Pratt jokes lead to better conversations, then okay. But it doesn't serve the story or the tonality of the story.
Yeah, I agree, because like you just have like him just quipping jokes and everything when this movie is supposed to be just with war and with everything that's going on, like with the world itself. And you even see it from like all the landscapes and everything. It's just a dystopia where everything doesn't look like, it just looks deserted and everything. So you can't have like people quipping jokes, like even with like the post lady. I don't remember her name off the top of my head right now, but I got annoyed of her at some points because she was just talking way too much, even on times when it was like supposed to be a heartfelt moment.
Yeah, Penny Pal as voiced by Jenny Slate. I get it. I get it. I like Jenny Slate though, so I'm going to let it pass. But you mentioned Stanley Tucci.
Yes, I did.
I'm curious your take, because I'm going to sit here and gush because it's Stanley Tucci, but you go on. I'll let you get this off your chest.
Okay. So when they first introduced him, they were like, rather handsome guy. I'm like, okay, fair enough. He is pretty handsome, fine. But then after where it was with his mom and him trying to escape the real world to be with his mom and her being nice, because he actually explains after that she was a 3-day drunk and she was never like, he never had good moments with her. The thing that doesn't work for me is when he just goes right out of the blue and talks to Esposito, literally just saying, who cares? Who cares? I'm like, what do you mean, who cares? It's like, what does that even mean? It's like you're trying to keep a kid that's literally dying in there to try and save the world and everything like that. And you're like, who cares? I'm like, I understand that you went through something bad as a child. I understand that. But you can't just be doing that just to basically kill a kid.
Oh, but you can. So first of all, this movie is proof positive that somewhere down the road, before too soon, Stanley Tucci needs to play Lex Luthor, because this is the most Lex Luthor performance that he's ever done, period. Ethan Skate is unfeeling, dispassionate, and morally void. But at the beginning of the film, you know, he's being propped up by Holly Hunter in this, you know, like clearly fluff piece propaganda type video, right? But that's the thing. He's an amoral, completely sociopathic tech CEO, whatever, right? He's a megalomaniac is what he is, right? To him, the only thing that matters is the end result. What's good for him, what's good for center, period. The whole thing with his mother creating this version of her that was what he wished was kind of sets the tone for why he is the way he is. And it also harkens back to, you know, talking back to Marvel here, the BARF, the binarily augmented retro framing that Tony Stark had created in order to create these 3D kind of holograms that you're able to communicate and interact with. This is kind of the same thing as the BARF from Marvel, since we're talking Marvel as well. But I mean, I'm fine with Tucci being that person, like, who cares? That tells you exactly who the villain is. Because at times, you've got this bounty hunting-esque kind of version of Giancarlo Esposito in robot form. And then you have the true villain behind this is the CEO. It's the guy who will do anything to anyone to achieve the goals that he deems fit. Not anyone else, not a president, not a world leader, a CEO. And we're talking about someone who created technology that allows people to lose themselves in a virtual reality so much that they're dying on the street, plugged into a wall generator. That tells you everything you need to know about the center technology. So you're not going to have this, thinking of the world kind of mentality of the CEO behind. No. Whoever makes a technology like that is clearly not caring about the people who's buying his technology.
I love how you talk about like the CEO and everything like that, and you're basically just referencing the real world. Like that's the funny thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's another thing too, right? I talked about being able to create a film where you can talk to teens and other people and be able to point to things and go, look at this guy and then look at this guy in the real world. And you can draw the parallels. And I'm not going to get into that because I don't like to get into political discussions on the show because I don't want to. We watch movies in order to be able to separate, but there is also a way to take a look at movies, identify things that parallel it in the real world, and make your own judgments from there. But I think in this case, because you needed someone who was just a rotten piece of crap human being to make someone known as the Butcher of Schenectady turn around and change his mind. Tucci brings that in a very kind of dignified asshole kind of way. Like, you got to be really good at being that charming and that much of an asshole in a character. Stanley Tucci for the win. That's why he needs to be Lex Luthor.
Hey, well, we're not getting that in the new Superman, though.
I know, but I want him to be Lex Luthor. It'd be so perfect. Like, if the day ever rolls around that they finally cast Stanley Tucci as Lex Luthor in a live action property, live action, don't just cheap out and put him in a voice role, live action Lex Luthor, I will hold a party on this podcast and we will go through the entire Stanley Tucci filmography because damn, the man isn't good. But we talked about Giancarlo Esposito as the Butcher of Schenectady. Your thoughts on him?
I actually liked him as like a first sort of, not even villain, but just first main opposition to kind of go after. Because he was first like, he was basically going against Mr. Peanut and everything, and you had that fight. It was like the ending itself, I understood, because it's like, okay, he saw that main antagonist of like, he's just devoid of everything. And he's like, okay, I finally found someone that understands me and isn't full, like, devoid of anything, basically. Mm-hmm. And I think he just plays. So I never watched Breaking Bad. I know people love that show. I've never watched it. But from what I heard, he kind of plays the same sort of stoic person that he plays in like every movie, in like every show. So he is playing like a bounty hunter sort of thing, and he's playing it like stoic and everything. But you can understand his pain at the end, where it's like, okay, he's dealing with someone that's even worse than him and just is devoid of anything, of any feeling or anything. So you understand why he's nice to them after at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I've never watched Breaking Bad either, but I can take a look at his performance in this and directly point to his role as Moff Gideon in The Mandalorian. Because hell's yeah, The Mandalorian. But the thing is, here you have a character who has spent his time in the war against the robots. He clearly has a dispassion for robots, for sentient artificial life. That's the thing. Like, he spends a lot of time in the drone, right? And a lot of his acting is basically on a little screen on this drone. But here we have someone who sees that as a tool and it's not as a sentient thing. So that's okay, right? The minute that Tucci takes over a drone and shoots Ke Kwan's character, that's when he realizes that, whoa, this isn't just me going in and continuing the. That's the thing. He's continuing the war. By taking on this mission, he is continuing the war against the robots, and that makes sense to him. But once the war crosses the line and he realizes, whoa, you just killed a human and you're doing this to a child. This almost feels like he's playing someone who just met Moff Gideon. It's like, oh, you're doing all this? It's interesting. It's fascinating. And I like the look on his face as he walks away from the war and takes off the helmet and disconnects from the drone. I mean, it's a small moment, but it's played perfectly by Giancarlo Esposito.
And it's good that you mentioned Ki Hu Kwan because I have my thoughts on him. I'm going to be honest. And it's not bad thoughts. I actually liked him, but we'll
let's get to him now because Ki Hu Kwan's next on the list as Dr. Hammers and the voice of PC.
Okay. So they were building him up as like a antagonist, but he wasn't really, when it was like, okay, he was trying to just look at the betterment of the world itself and how people weren't having it good, were having it rough and everything. And he was just trying to help people. But he saw that he made a mistake and how the kid was dying. So it was nice that he went out of his way and tried to help the kid and helped him, like, basically. What I found funny at the beginning was they mentioned about like the nodes and like people can go into different consciousness and everything. His legit conscience was in a robot. So I was like, okay, that's a little bit of foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after we see him and we get all the backstory and everything, and it was a nice piece because you got to understand him more and more. But then you kill him off quick. I'm like, so then what was all of the buildup for? I understand he was still there with like PC itself but like there was no emotion or anything when PC was there because it's just a robot.
Yeah. I actually like the fact that they killed off his character the way they did. And let me explain why. So first you've got Ki Hu Kwan, who is, I love the resurgence of his popularity and him getting to do some fantastic films right now. Ki Hu Kwan has earned every single flower that he has gotten lately.
You said Michelle Yeoh and I was like, oh my God, like it would have been so nice to have, because I watched Ki Hu Kwan in Everything Everywhere All at Once. One of my favorite movies. Like that movie is incredible. And Michelle Yeoh was absolutely phenomenal in that movie. So seeing her again would have been so nice, but I digress. I still really like Ki Hu Kwan.
But here's the thing. So yes, here's an idealist and the scientist, right? In the middle of the robot war, working for this company that says we have an answer to end the war, to end the suffering. Because remember, people are dying in this war. Robots are killing humans. So there's an idealist there that realizes that the gift that is Chris's brain gives them the edge in order to be able to end the war. And then time passes and he realizes that everything that he has done has actually been done not to a child who's passed away, but to a child who now is basically, for lack of a better term, a comatose prisoner hooked up to a computer, never going to have a life, never going to, it's just a tool. And he realizes that his role in this is unforgivable. So he found a way to help Chris find a life. And you can see in Ki Hu Kwan's performance, like there's a duality in his character. He knows that what he's done is unforgivable. And he knows that nothing he can ever do will make right the wrongs that he did. So you have this character that it's not redemption. It's more a reckoning. he has come to terms with his role for better or for worse. And just at the moment when he's here to defend the family that he helped Chris find, that's when he is killed by Stanley Tucci in a way that also solidifies why Ethan Skate is the bad guy and why Giancarlo Esposito is not necessarily the baddest of the bad guys in this. Michelle Yeoh's great, but I think this role benefits from Ke Huy Quan's presence because he's able to give that duality and give you a character. You can understand why this kind of character would be so passionate and so misguided by the company that he works for.
Yeah, and because he didn't know that all of these bad things were gonna happen after, and he didn't realize that like his doing of keeping Christopher in that and trying to save the technology and everything and save the human race was gonna be bad on the person that he basically saved.
Yeah,
On the person that he was basically trying to help everyone else. So I understand that, and I understand that it was like the risk of like, okay, you have him dying, and it kind of rectifies everything that kind of he went through and everything that was kind of misguided.
Yeah. I just love the fact that in a cast like this, right, he's really kind of standing out in a way that, you know, it's great to see from Ke Huy Quan.
I love his resurgence, like in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I loved him in Loki. I thought he was great in Loki. And I just love how he's getting so much more appreciation that he deserves. And it's like with everything, I'm just going to refer to it as everything because it's a very long name. But his speech for the Oscars was just so moving and so heartfelt because it was like the movie was basically a small budget movie. And with him getting so much of the recognition and where he came from with like the Goonies, and he also came from the Indiana Jones movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have a kid that kind of grew up in the industry and so much hardships fell through him. It's like a Brendan Fraser, for example, when he won with The Whale.
Mm-hmm.
Also had a moving speech because the industry is hard. The industry is not easy at all. But it's that redemption, it's that resurgence that makes you who you are.
Yeah, damn you critics for downvoting this one, and for Ke Huy Quan's other 2025 film Love Hurts, which currently sits at a 19% tomatometer.
God, I really wanted to watch that movie.
Oh, I'm still going to watch it because it's Ke Huy Quan.
Me too.
Woody Norman, who played Chris, the brother, your thoughts on him?
I actually, like, I know you're going to debate me on this, but I liked him. I know I don't know if he played in any other movies or anything like that, this actor, but I liked him because he showed that level of like vulnerability with Millie Bobby Brown. And you see you understand the connection that they had, and especially with like the kid Cosmo, because you have his conscience with his sister. And even at the ending, when it was like him with his sister, it was such a heartfelt moment because it's like, okay, his sister has to kill him now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, by the way, he was also in The Last Voyage of the Demeter, Cobweb, Come On. And as far as television goes, he was in Troy, Fall of a City. He was in one episode of Les Miserables. So he's got a decent acting credentials behind him. I think what I liked most about what Woody Norman brought to this is this awkwardness to him. We have a character who is a certifiable genius. His brain is beyond pretty much anyone's comprehension. There's a reason why Chris was taken in order to be able to be this processor kind of thing. Of course, they don't explain all that, but regardless of, for all the exposition in this film, they don't explain that. But still, I like the fact that at the heart of Chris is just a kid who wants to hang out with his sister and watch his favorite cartoon and kind of ignore the outside world. We're talking about a kid who is an idealist, right? Despite all the anti-robot sentiment, his favorite character is still about, or his favorite cartoon is still about a robot. There's something understandable about Chris and a character that loses themselves in their likes, their fictional likes, as a way to cope with the outside world. And Michelle is kind of his safety blanket as well.
Yeah. And okay, so I have never watched Kid Cosmo, but now it's like after that movie, I'm like, okay, this show looks kind of fun. It looks just like a fun time.
Right? I mean, it does. It looks like one of those kind of cartoons that would have been, it would have been a good show, right? It's, you know what's going to happen though. Netflix is going to make the Kid Cosmo cartoon and make it reality.
It's going to be awful.
I mean, they've already made the Kid Cosmo mobile puzzle adventure game available on Netflix.
Well, of course.
Of course, because merchandising.
Paid sponsorship.
Jason Alexander, who played Ted, your thoughts on him?
I'm gonna say it like this: he's just a piece of like he's a terrible father. Not even father,
foster parent. Yeah,
foster parent. He's just a terrible foster parent. Like who? He's so disconnected with reality, and it's like, especially at that ending when he comes outside and he just looks outside, it doesn't hit for me.
It does for me though, and I say this because you think about it, right? All along the way, we've seen people just lose themselves in these virtual headsets, in this that apparently is, well, you know, able to take your brain and separate the left and the right, you know, at a technical level, so you can, you know, feel like you're on the beach, you know, enjoying your Mai Tais while actually also doing your job at the same time. Like the human mind is not supposed to do that. It's not supposed to be multitasking like that. I mean, even in reality, you know, the more you try to multitask, the less attention you pay to the things that need to be done. Here, you have people who are living in a fantasy world in one side and doing their job in the other, at the same time neglecting their body. So you have people literally dying with these things on because they forget that they have to step out of that world and disconnect. So the idea that Ted is probably getting money from the government for being a foster parent, and he uses that money in order to buy things from the exclusion zone, and doesn't really give a damn about Michelle whatsoever. He was supposed to be an ass, and Jason Alexander played him as an ass. And even though the minute you hear your voice, you're like, oh crap, it's Seinfeld again. But it works because you want someone that you don't like in this role.
Look at and I'm going to be bringing this up a lot. Look at Ready Player One, for example. Mm-hmm. Ready Player One had the aunt who just wanted to mooch off like the money from the government.
Yep.
For her kid, from the kid. I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head. But you have kind of those same parallels from like that movie to this movie.
Yeah.
I think that movie does it infinitely better, but yeah. Hey, I digress.
Yeah. I mean, you also have Holly Hunter in this film in a very, very small role. What a waste of Holly Hunter, because you've got Holly Hunter, right? I think Holly Hunter would have made more sense had you throughout the movie gone back to this propagandizing of Ethan Skate and what Center is supposed to be for this company. But I think it's one of those things where you don't have the space for that. It's kind of like the idea of the fact that really the movie only focuses on Chris and Michelle, and they don't really give a damn about the parents except for the fact that they're dead. That's it. There's no room in this movie for that.
Yeah. And like with the parents dead, and it's like that thing just went, like, I understand there was the flashback with the deer and everything, but it was really like instant. We never had that chance to kind of like sit with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, I also understand where you don't want to spend too much time and hammering. You don't want to be didactic about the fact that, yeah, but their parents are dead. Like, no, like the movie is the quest for her to find her brother. the parents at this point don't matter because we know that they're dead. We don't need to hammer that home. Like that whole scene where she's in the principal's office and she's like, turn the page, because she's clearly been through this before. That's all you needed to do in order to be able to establish Michelle and why she is the way she is.
You also we just needed to have like that explanation of like, how is Michelle just completely fine with trusting this robot?
Yep.
Like, how? He's like, okay, let's go on an adventure now.
Run the CAPTCHA. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Anything's better than hanging it with Ted.
Yeah, true. Facts.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Some things work better together, like NARS's Soft Matte Complete Concealer and Radiant Creamy Concealer. Soft Matte Complete Concealer erases and blurs imperfections with full coverage. Then, Radiant Creamy Concealer evens and brightens with a luxurious texture and radiant finish. 2 concealers, 1 flawless look. Perfect for a no-foundation base. NARS, better together. Visit Ulta to shop now.
Some of the biggest names in this cast is in the voice work. We're going to start with Anthony Mackie, who played Herm. This is Chris Pratt's best friend robot and the Russian doll of all robots. Your thoughts on him?
I'm going to be honest, I actually didn't even know that was Anthony Mackie. I was watching it this morning and I searched up, okay, what's the cast and everything. I saw Anthony Mackie there and I was like, what the heck? You're here? I didn't even know it was him. But I didn't mind him. Like, he was snarky. He was just an uptight person, like uptight robot. But there were some heartfelt moments at some points during his monologues and everything.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say he was awful.
I think the smartest thing that this movie did was they pitch shifted the voice in order to be able to make it not recognizable as Anthony Mackie. Because if you're listening to this and all you can think of is, oh, Falcon is telling Star-Lord what to do, right? Like, then you lose the point, right? You lose the individuality of the robot because of the voice of the actor. Because Anthony Mackie has a very distinctive voice. I mean, if you've watched anything from like Twisted Metal to, of course, like the Avengers films, you know what Anthony Mackie brings. I actually liked him in Altered Carbon season 2. But then again, I'm a big fan of Richard Morgan and his writings, and I loved the Altered Carbon books. But Anthony Mackie falls into the same script hole that is making this all about the jokes. I understand why they made Herm the way he is, because that also kind of explains why Chris Pratt's character is the way he is. The two of them joke together. That's how they are together. I understand it. I love the design of Herman. I think it looks great. I think it works well for this. I think it's a fun character. The fact that he's able to have these different size versions of himself and it feels like a Russian doll kind of thing. It's Herman works as a character, but I don't think the humor works as well.
Yeah, I agree. Because like with him always cracking jokes and everything, it doesn't work because it just like it's Anthony Mackie. Like you can even see from like different movies right now and different shows, he just cracks jokes. And it's like it doesn't work. It's weird.
It's because you haven't watched Altered Carbon, but go on.
I have not.
Alan Tudyk, who was the voice of Cosmo. Now, keep in mind, with Cosmo, the robot is very limited in the sound bites that come from the TV show. So very similar to Bumblebee from the Michael Bay Transformers films, or for now on known as Bumblebee. Your thoughts on Cosmo as voiced by Alan Tudyk?
I liked him. I liked his vulnerability and just like that connection that he had with Michelle because he's like no one expected Chris to do that and just have his consciousness in the Cosmo. So it was just surprising. But you can see from all the mannerisms, like you said, of like him with the C on his chest and like him kind of showing everything to Michelle, like, oh, this is Chris. And you had those heartfelt moments, like him sitting with Michelle and watching the cartoon in the mall. And you also have like everything, like the small moments that you have of like the guy sitting homeless and the kid Cosmo just putting a blanket on him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the dialogue being limited, right? It's you fall into that. You have to use certain lines over and over again to kind of get the point across. I think the design of Cosmo works really well, and I recognize it's pulling from the book itself. But Alan Tudyk's voice in this is so good, and it's partly too why I loved Star Wars Rogue One, because he was the voice of K2SO in that. Alan Tudyk is able to bring a life to a lifeless character, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like you have like that high pitched voice in Cosmo, but she brings it to life because like the phrases that he has are so out of there, but in the setting itself of like where the scene is and everything like that, it works.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, too, I look at Cosmo, and as much as I gripe about Bumblebee, because let's be honest, in those Transformers, Michael Bay directed films, Bumblebee is a freaking joke, right? Even though Bumblebee is supposed to be like that one robot that is able to, communicate so well with the humans, that comes from the cartoons, right? Then you get to the Bumblebee movie starring Haley Steinfeld, and that's where I see a lot of this inspiration. Millie Bobby Brown's interaction with Cosmo in this is very reminiscent of Haley Steinfeld and her connection with Bumblebee in the Bumblebee film. And it's probably why Bumblebee is the best live action Transformers film of them all, because you have that ability to have that connection. And even though Bumblebee didn't talk in that one, it was all again through radio sound bites and whatever. Same thing here. It's pre-recorded sound bites, but it's that connection with Millie Bobby Brown that makes Cosmo work.
Have you watched the new Transformers movie?
Oh, Rise of the Beast? I have.
Yeah. And what you think of Bumblebee in that?
I don't.
Okay.
Don't be shooting Bumblebee.
Also, I'm not shooting him. I actually liked him in that.
No, what I'm saying is you have one of the most popular Transformers of all time, and you basically temporarily kill him off so in order you can have more freaking Mirage is voiced by Pete Davidson. No. I would rather have Bumblebee scanning through the radio dial again than listen to Pete Davidson all over Mirage. And that's not Mirage. I'm sorry, but it's not Mirage. Let's go back to watching Transformers 1. Woody Harrelson, who was the voice of Mr. Peanut. Your thoughts on him?
I didn't even know it was Woody Harrelson either, too. I'm going to be honest. And it surprised me. It's weird with him. I think he was okay, but also like there were some points that were weird because it was like he didn't want to fight with anyone and he didn't want to get into war or anything like that. And then he's like, okay, it's fine now. There was even the part where when they first got into the mall itself and he was like, okay, I'm gonna let you guys go. And he didn't want anything to do with any trouble or anything like that, but he then after helps them out and goes on war with them.
It's interesting because when you take a look at all the robots, really, Herm is definitely all for jokes, but has personality, has sentience. Cosmo is while being guided by Chris, limited in dialogue choice because of the way Cosmo is. Penny Pal, it's your male robot, it's whatever. Pop Fly, everything's in baseball analogies, it's whatever. Mr. Peanut is the one robot that truly feels sentient, like truly sentient. And I think with Woody Harrelson and what he did with this is that you have a world weary kind of presence in him. He's fought the war. He fought for freedom and independence. And at the end of the day, after losing the war, he signed this declaration that he's the reason why they're there in the exclusion zone. He's the reason why they're alive, but they're not really alive. And that's got to weigh on a character like that. And for Mr. Peanut, Woody Harrelson adds that gravitas, but he's the only robot, maybe Cosmo aside, he's the only robot that feels like they live the situation, while everyone else is just like, all right, let's hit him with a baseball bat and let's deliver the mail. And
the baseball bat guy was funny. Let's be real. I actually really enjoyed him.
Popfly was okay, but again, it was more lighthearted. And in a moment that they're about to, go to Seattle and fight this war, it's basically like for their own existence again. They're rejoining the war and they're making jokes out of it. Like you got Taco playing like battle music on the side, and the tonality of this film forgets the story and the world that they're in. And it's almost, it's weird. If all the robots were like Popfly and Herm, then okay, you have a lighthearted, yet still there's a story there film. Mr. Peanut is totally opposite. Like even this after the mall gets burned out and you have this, hair cutting robot looking at Chris Pratt going, hair, like gripping onto some last vestige of its actual existence. Like you look at this film from a certain perspective, and this film is dark AF.
I think even like you even said with the music, when they started playing Don't Stop Believing, I was like, does that song really fit with what we're going with next?
Yeah, I would rather hear Ride of the Valkyrie than
Don't get me wrong, I love Journey. I absolutely love it.
There is nothing wrong with Journey whatsoever. There is something wrong with Journey being used as a rally point because it's a happy song. Really, it's a happy song.
That's not the movie.
That's not the movie, no. For $320 million, one has to admit that this film looks fantastic. Like, there's been so much, since we talked about Marvel earlier, there's been so much talk lately about Marvel CGI and their CGI artists being overworked and, forced to pump out a lot. This is not that situation. This film looks every single penny that was spent on it. And I understand it's straight to streaming. Netflix bought the rights. It's all good. But should this film, even though it was a Netflix production, should they have staggered it and released it in theaters first?
I think they should have, because of how big of a budget that they had for this movie and how big of a cast that they had for this movie. It would have at least made them money. And like, it's an IP that's at least recognizable for some people. Like, I never knew The Electric State, and I still wanted to watch it because, like, you see that cast, and it's like, okay, this movie must be at least decent or good. But, like, and the landscaping and everything in the movie, I thought was brilliant. Like, it looked amazing.
Yeah. I wonder, and I recognize why streaming services buy these properties and make these films and put it on there, because you want people to actually get the service. I get it. At some point, though, some of these films that are straight to streaming deserve to be on the big screen. I don't see why a company doesn't financially back the film, like a Netflix or an Amazon or whoever, right? Financially back the film, release it in theaters, knowing that when it's done, the exclusive rights belong to that company only. Why isn't Netflix putting things in theaters and then waiting a year to put it on their service, right? Make it worthwhile. This is part of the problem with Disney right now, is that they'll put out a Marvel movie and then you're guaranteed in about 3 months it's going to be on Disney Plus. So why should I even bother going to the theater? Right?
Yeah.
Netflix.
Look at all of the Disney remake movies. It's like, why even bother going to watch it in theaters when you're just going to wait for Disney Plus to put it out?
Yeah. But the thing is, at least Disney's putting it in the theaters, though, right? Marvel's putting it in the theaters. Why doesn't Netflix put this in the theaters and not put it on streaming until like a year later? And then it can have a resurgence, right? The Electric State, had it been a theater film, even if it was a Netflix production, you're going to get some of that money back. I don't know if anyone specifically signed up for Netflix to get the Electric State. I understand people signing up for Disney Plus because you want the Marvel TV shows. I understand you want Netflix because you want Stranger Things and Squid Game. I understand this part. Apple TV has their own things as well. You would sign up for something like Monarch. You would sign up for the morning show. And the list goes on and on. People would sign up for Paramount Plus for the Paramount Plus exclusive shows like Star Trek. Why doesn't Netflix leverage this kind of property, put it in theaters, rake in some coin, and then put it out on their streaming service?
You also have the show You on Netflix. Great show. People need to go watch that show. I absolutely love that show. But yeah, Netflix was the first streaming service that came before everything else. So why does it feel like they've just taken a step back from everyone?
I think the problem here is this. I don't want to say it's a streaming war, right? But the push is on to get all this content out there. And I can appreciate the TV shows, right? You don't really have a place to put those TV series because you don't want to make a TV series, put it on like CBS and then put it on Netflix. Because guess what? That's Paramount. Paramount can do that because they're owned by CBS. Netflix is its own thing. Netflix doesn't have a channel. What they could do is make a fast channel, but then what's the point? Right? But with these movies, with these bigger budget films, like you want to make a small little rom-com, put it on Netflix right away, do that. Right? That works. No one wants to go to a big screen and pay big screen money to go watch a rom-com. But there are films under the Netflix banner, under the Prime Video banner, under any of these streaming services. They're all capable of making good films. Put it in the theater. We all remember a time when a movie would hit the theater and then it would come out and then maybe it comes on DVD. And then a year after that original movie release, then it hits the movie networks, right? We can be patient, but we don't want to be patient when all we have to wait is like 2-3 months. Wait a year.
Look at, like, for example, I'm going to bring this up. The animated Spider-Man movie, the Miles Morales movies. People have waited 5 years. 5 years for those movies.
Yeah.
And we finally got confirmation a couple weeks ago that it's finally coming out in 2027. And that's still another 5 years when it was supposed to come out the year after.
Yeah. Wait long enough and the movie will eventually show up on streaming, right? But the thing is, Netflix doesn't even allow themselves to do that, right? Netflix is at an age where if you want it, people are already going to have it, right? And it's generational at this point. Yes, it did start at one point with like mail order DVDs kind of thing, and then you send the DVD back. That used to be Netflix. That's not anymore. You have a generation that's kind of grown up now with Netflix as it is. You don't. It's in every household, right? It's easy to access. $320 million film that looks this good should be in the theaters. And if they don't start doing these kind of things, then how long until Netflix loses money again, has to raise their prices again, and eventually has to raise the prices to the point where people will sit there and go, maybe I don't need Netflix.
The only thing that's going to be making them money this year is like Squid Game, that's going to be coming out in a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Stranger Things, that's going to be also coming out in November or December.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing that's going to make them money, because it's like, it's their highest grossing shows ever.
But that's the thing. If you can balance some of these production costs with box office money and then make the public wait for things to come out, then you make it a thing. You justify spending money on these films. You justify spending $100 million on something that might be straight to streaming, right? But even then, right, it's a calculated cost. Put it in theaters, take some of that money back, build better productions that will go straight to streaming, and then spend the money on the big box office film again. Get that money back, feed the machine. Because otherwise, the only answer is we all pay more per month.
Like, this movie deserves to at least be in theaters. Like, compared to the movies that we have right now in theaters, this movie at least deserves to have some notion in theaters.
Yeah. At this point, I mean, I understand you not wanting to have a box office bomb on your hands, which the way the critics came at this film, maybe this film is a box office bomb if it did hit theaters. But as it is right now, it's a box office because there's no money in the box office and there's no way to quantify how much people like this film unless they release the actual streaming numbers, which they never will do.
This movie will probably not bomb as hard as Snow White. Let's be real, though.
No, probably not. But then again, there's more, I think, to the Snow White thing. The problem with Snow White is that people just don't want to watch a remake, right? Like the animated film was perfect. You didn't need to redo this. Write new stories. That's something I'll give this movie. Whether you like the tonality or not, whether you like any of the actors or not, it's a different new story. And yes, it's based on a book. I understand that. A lot of good movies are, but it's new. It gave us a new world, and finally we're not talking about the same old thing over and over again.
Yeah. People are still going to go watch Lilo and Stitch, let's be real, though.
No, I am not.
I am, though. I grew up with that movie. I need to go watch it.
I got hate on for Stitch, and I say that because I went to Disney World one time. They had a Stitch ride there, and in the Stitch ride, it was like one of those like they add extra things to add the senses to it. So Stitch has a belch on the system, and they pump in this smell, and that smell wouldn't get out of my hair for 2 days.
Oh God! Okay, yeah, no, never mind.
So that ride and Stitch. I may still be angry. All right. We've now come to the end of the show. So, Alex, the Electric State, who is your MVP?
I don't know if we're going to have the same consensus on this, but for me, and I was already talking very highly about him, give me Ki-Hugh Kwan.
Yeah, I actually do have Ki-Hee Kwan as my MVP on this. Don't get me wrong. I like what Stanley Tucci brought to this role, but Ki-Hee Kwan gave us the most nuanced, tonally appropriate, complex character in the entire film. Nothing against Michelle Yeoh, but this film benefits from Ki-Hee Kwan in this role. Alex, thank you so much for this. Now, please remind our listeners where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
So yeah, you can find me on Instagram at a.leal2026. And I also started a new podcast called the Footy Frenzy Podcast. I'm doing with a couple of buddies of mine, and I have yours truly helping me out with it. So whenever you guys want to have a listen, please do. It's on Spotify and also on Apple Music.
There will be no talking about the Electric State on the Footy Frenzy Podcast
Absolutely
at all. All right, Alex, thank you so much for this. And to you, our dear listeners, well, you guys know the drill. If there is a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned, or there is no way in the Electric State that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at NotThatBadcast or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out our merch section because we got some cool stuff there if you want to help support the show. Until next time, he's Alex. I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.